Hello, everybody. I am changing it up tonight, and you are seeing me in the evening. We just are coming off the Picky Eating Challenge, the 5-day challenge from last week, where I joined you every day in the afternoon. But I wanted to make sure that I was here in the evening to answer as many questions as I could tonight about the Mealtime Works class. So more on that in a minute. I am going to be answering those questions. I've had a lot, I've had a lot of questions. I've been in my email pretty much all day. So I have a lot of great questions I want to make sure that I'm answering, because I know that if somebody else had that question, you probably have it too. But before I get to that, I first want to tell you that tonight at midnight, the very special bonus with all of the homework assignments printed out in a handy dandy printable for you, that's this guy right here. That's 4 pages for you guys. You can get that from this very special bonus email that was sent out to you on Friday. It also is on a recap page that has all of the lessons that you learned during the week, all of the videos in one place. So if you're behind, if you want to take a look at everything and you want to be able to access it quickly, make sure you get to that recap page from the challenge. Now, to get that, you have to be on the email list for the challenge. So make sure that if you haven't done that already, you can still grab it tonight. As soon as you sign up, you'll get an email that directs you right to the recap page where you can see everything from the challenge and kind of binge watch and take in everything and print out and save the bonus printable from there. So you can do that by going to yourkidstable.com challenge if you haven't already signed up. And if you have signed up, you got an email this morning with the link in it, and you got an email on Friday with the link in it. So make sure you check that out, because it will be down tonight. So we had a fantastic week. For those of you that are just joining me now, for those of you that have followed along all week, I just want to say thank you again. It was a really wonderful week, and it was so wonderful to see you all learning new things and having some really great aha moments. If you're watching this right now and you're tuning in and you were following us last week, and you had somebody that you were doing this with, you had a buddy, a friend, a sibling, a sister, make sure that you go ahead and tag them in this, or share this with them so that they can see it. This will be our last video from the challenge. So do that now, and then we'll be getting started here. Okay, to get started, I kind of wanted to start off with this quote that I think of all the time. When I think of any kind of challenge that we're facing in life, I think it's especially applicable to picky eaters. So you may know this quote. It's a really famous one, and it's from Einstein. And he says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I mean, gosh, don't we all do that at different points in our life? But I feel like with picky eating, we really get stuck in that because we just don't know what else to do. And the problem is there just aren't a lot of people that know about picky eating. Even the professionals that we turn to often are not trained in picky eating. So there's a lot of old advice that has been passed down for generations, and has worked at times for certain generations, and that's a whole nother topic that we're not going to get into tonight. But we know that a lot of our kids today are picky eaters, and that most families have at least one child that they consider to be a picky eater. Now, as a lot of you learned in the last week, and it's something that I talk about a lot, we kind of have this term that's called picky eaters, right? But that covers a lot of kids. That covers the kid that is just not liking their vegetables, but that also is the kid that is eating 3 foods and hates to come to the table and gags and throws up when he sees a new food. All of that falls under the same umbrella. So obviously, some of that old advice is just not going to apply. So that was one of the same things that I was really trying to impress upon everybody that was in the challenge last week. However, this is a really great thing, and I love it. Sandra says 3 out of 4 of her kids. It really is, because there are a lot of layers to picky eating. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So there is a lot of reason for so many kids being a picky eater now. There is, and it's just not as simple. It's just not a black and white issue. So it means that when we just keep doing the same thing and we keep trying the same thing day after day, like that quote that I'm thinking of from Einstein, when we're doing the same thing over and over again, we're hoping that something is going to be different, but it's not. And we don't know what else to do, and we don't know what else to turn, because a lot of people do not have the answers. But here's the good news. This past week in the challenge, you guys learned 5 core strategies that can really be the beginning of that change. And the awesome thing is that no matter if you have that really mild picky eater, even if you have an average picky eater, if you have a child that is a regular eater, all the way through to those more extreme picky eaters, everything that you guys learned about last week applies to all of them. Okay, and that is the foundation of what the full picky eating class is built on. So it is really like the tip of the iceberg in terms of getting down to those layers of exactly what's going on with picky eating and getting to the root of the problem and some of those more advanced strategies that a lot of people just don't have the skills in. And even within the therapies, like myself as an occupational therapist, feeding therapy is considered a specialty even within that field. So it can be really hard to find the answers, which is why I am so passionate about doing things like the free 5-day challenge, but also being able to offer a really comprehensive class. So I feel like that word comprehensive is kind of this big word, but it's the best word that I can use to describe it, because for me, I've poured everything I know as a feeding therapist and every practical thing that I know about being a mom into Mealtime Works, so that parents from all over the world can have the resources that they need and a total and complete plan to actually execute in their own home. So this is totally doable by you, but it takes a lot to lay out. Now, I've worked really hard to do that super simply, to do it super concisely, and it's all built to within the Mealtime Works program. So that's really what I'm talking about tonight. And I feel like sometimes, we say this online class, and it's a word we hear more and more. But what I'm really talking about when I say Mealtime Works, it's really this entire plan for you. And it's not something that you're just kind of watching a fuzzy Facebook video like this. Inside of class, you have slides that are very organized and that I'm teaching you, so that it's very concise and I'm not getting off topic like I like to do sometimes in live videos, or have a hard time not doing, should I say. I'm obviously a talker. But it's about having those lessons that you can watch, having lessons that you can read, having slides that you can print out to follow along, and then having handouts that you can take so that you can quickly look at what you've just learned and be able to apply them. It's looking at every single person's learning style and putting them in there so that it is accessible for everybody in a really easy way with a total and a complete plan. Okay, some of my numbers are changing. Can you guys give me a thumbs up and just let me know that I'm seeing some comments come in, but I lost some of the numbers on my screen. So just give me a thumbs up if you guys are hearing me okay and you're seeing me, if you're with me. That would be super helpful. I just hope that the live feed didn't cut out. My timer is still going, so I'm hoping you guys can still hear me. Okay, great. I got at least one thumbs up there. Perfect, thank you. So the other thing that I want to talk about tonight is before I get to a couple of these questions, is the total value of what's in class. And I do see your questions coming up. Know that I am going to get to those for sure. I promise I'm going to scroll up and I will get to all of these questions. So the thing that I really want to talk to you about tonight is what the actual value of the class is. This isn't what you're going to pay for the class. It's the actual value that is in the class. So the value of the class is really way over $1,000 because of everything that you are getting in it. Because it's not just the class, It's not just the handouts and the slides and the videos that you get, but you're also getting a private Facebook discussion group indefinitely with access to me on a daily basis from Monday through Friday. For me to be able to do that, I really separate out time in my day so that I can concentrate on the students' questions and be able to give them very thorough and detailed responses to their specific situation. And then on top of that, there's live Q&As that I do at least once a month to make sure that you have your questions answered in a personable way with even more details. And then there are all sorts of bonuses built into class. From a recipe pack that are really great recipes for picky eaters and a great starting place, to a menu planning bundle. And then we have the special bonus expert series that is coming up also. That includes 3 different interviews I'm going to be doing with different extras. So it's even like above and beyond. I was really, because I cover so much in class, but like even just the extra stuff just to give you even more, that's going to get started next week. And I am so excited about that. So that's one of the other bonuses in class. So while the value of the class is way over $1,000, the price of the class with the $50 off is only $197. So I've had a lot of questions about, is the coupon already applied? The coupon is already applied. So because when I put a coupon on there, I have even twice as many emails asking me why the coupon isn't working, because there's just always like tech problems and glitches. So it's across the site, and that's through tomorrow night at midnight. Wednesday morning, the price will go back to $247, but you also have the option to do a payment plan of $57, or you have the option to do a light program. This program is more for picky eaters, and it does not include the discussion board, and it does not include the more detailed modules of 3 and 4, which really get to those layers of picky eating and are all about kind of figuring out why your child is a picky eater and how to address it. This is so very important if you have a child that has more extreme picky eating tendencies, if they really have a limited variety of food, like I'm talking 20 or less. These modules are so important. What you learned in the challenge is a wonderful base, and I want you to start there. And then once you get into class, I dive into that even deeper to answer every kind of question and nuance you have about what it looks like to really live a no-pressure environment in a way that makes sense and isn't stressful and isn't crazy, and all of those kind of hang-ups that come up with it, as well as putting the structure and routine into place and how to set up family rules. Once you have all that done, it's really about looking at this other layer and why the heck are kids having so much trouble actually eating food. It seems like something that we just take for granted and something that should be easy for us, but we know that some kids have major sensory issues going on that make it really difficult. And actually, I shouldn't say major sensory issues. I mean in relation to their eating. So when I say that, I'm talking about how their brain thinks about the food. So many of our kids in their brain look at food and it feels absolutely horrible, disgusting to them. It might as well be like hearing nails on the chalkboard when they see or feel or taste or touch any of those foods. The reaction is that extreme. But there's a way to overcome that, and there's actually a way to figure out if it's sensory for your child, and then what the heck you can do about it to actually improve it. You can actually improve a child's sensory processing. So how they're experiencing those sensations in their brain, there is a way to overcome that with a couple of different therapeutic strategies that are very doable in the home. And another issue for some kids, or another reason that some kids are picky eaters, are that they're not chewing and coordinating their food well. I talked about this a little bit in Friday's video, but that's all about oral motor skills. So we talk about that as well as possible medical issues that you may have never thought of, and what happens when sensory issues develop later, when normal picky eating phase kind of snowballs out of control. These are all of the things that are really fully explored in class, so that you're able to have the tools to know which of those reasons your child is becoming such a picky eater, and then what to do to overcome them. Now, lastly, I want to say that, and this is a question that I have gotten a couple times, so I'm going to start answering these questions here. Some people have asked me, will this class replace therapy? What if my child needs feeding therapy? And I know for some of you, you're just hearing for the first time that maybe your child needs feeding therapy. Not all picky eaters need feeding therapy. And I'm not saying that this class replaces feeding therapy. For those of you that are in it, you know that an occupational therapist like myself often is about $100 an hour. Some insurance programs aren't covering that. I know some of you are living in countries or parts of the United States where it's just not an option to have therapy regularly. I will tell you that many of my students have prevented having to go to therapy. Some of my students have used it together with therapy because it's a really full program. There are some programs that don't support doing things in the home. It's just really clinically based, and that can be really good and really wonderful. Mealtime Works really gives you a way to follow a complete program at home and support what the therapist is doing in the clinic with your child. So again, it may be for a lot of students, it may be preventative for them. It also may shorten your time of therapy, and it also may mean that it's not a road that you need to take. So those are what I want to say about it. But of course, I love feeding therapy. It's something that I have done for a really long time. And it's all of that that I have used in my practice that I have put into this class for you guys. Okay, let's get to some more of these questions. Now, I see that there is a couple of questions here, and I love the comments. Thank you so much, Sandra. Sandra's talking about some of the things she learned in the challenge and how it's been working. Jen says, thank you for the challenge last week. And then let me see. Doris, thank you for telling me you can hear and see me well. All right, let me just scroll up, guys. You know that this thing gets a little bit goofy on me, and make sure that I didn't miss any other questions okay, I think I'm good. So I want to answer another question, which I've also gotten a lot of emails about. Is this class for professionals? So almost all week I have been talking solely to parents. But the truth is there are a lot of OTs, speech therapists, teachers, nutritionists, and dietitians that also take mealtime work. If you're falling into that category, if you're a professional, this class is absolutely appropriate for you. If you are new to feeding, if you are looking to expand your feeding skills, if you want a program that you can replicate and is really easy to give your clients, you are allowed to use all of the handouts that you receive in class for anyone on your caseload and distribute those. So I will also tell you that the class is all around about 6 hours long, and you will get a course certificate for that, as well as any parent that wants it. I did have somebody ask that question today too. Any student can get the course certificate after that you have completed it. Once we have the expert series, I'm going to bump up the time to about 7 hours because that will be placed inside of class also. Okay, but it's happening live starting next week. So if you're a professional, you do get a course certificate. You do get to use all of the handouts in those things. If you are looking for more specifics, don't hesitate to email me if you're a professional. Now, I will tell you that it is not officially CEU certified for those of you looking, but a lot of therapists, as I have said, and teachers have taken the course and submitted the certificate with the course outline with no problem. So just a little shout out to all of you amazing professionals that have participated in the challenge as you're trying to just have more resources, freshen up your skills, and working so hard for the kids that you're trying to help. I love having you guys in the group, and I so appreciate how active you were on the discussion board answering questions along the way. So thank you to all the professionals that participated in the challenge and have already hopped into class too. We have quite a few new professionals that have already joined class as well. Okay, so 2 more questions that I have written down, and I'll get to some of these live questions here. What if I can't start right away? So this is the great thing about Mealtime Works, because I wanted this class to be set up so that you could start whenever you wanted to. You can start the minute you join class. You can start a month after class. It does not matter. It's totally up to you, and you can go through class as fast or as slow as you want. I don't hold back information and wait for you to complete something. Everything is completely released for you, so that if you are in a desperate situation and you want to just start plowing through all the information, you can. If you want to pace yourself, if you have some special events coming up, you have that ability. And I tell you that because the coupon does expire tomorrow night. This is the special 1-year anniversary of Mealtime Works, so it's a special that I'm doing across the site. It only will happen one time a year, site-wide. So if you're looking at your next week or two and you can't get started, that's totally fine. It's no problem at all. Okay, another question. What if my child is pocketing food or has sensory issues or has difficulty chewing? So I talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'm definitely seeing more and more of these questions because these were things that we weren't able to specifically talk about in the challenge. I wanted to get as many of the basics and give you a taste for that as much as I could in the challenge. And these are definitely more advanced strategies. But like I said, I want you to know that any of those issues, like pocketing food, that's actually come up quite a few times. The pocketing food could be a sensory issue or it could be oral motor. I teach you exactly how to determine which, or if it's actually possibly both, and want you to start working through that. So if you're having any more specifics about children gagging, tasting food, throwing up, all of that stuff is completely covered into class once we really dive into those underlying issues, for sure. Okay, now I see I have a question from Sandra. She says, making them eat at the table is working really great, but we're having a really hard time with them trying new food. So Sandra, you're doing a fantastic job, and you're seriously, and I do mean that. That's not just fluff that I'm saying. I know that applying some of what you learned in the challenge is really difficult. It's a life change often for the entire family, right? We're talking about changing dynamics. That stuff is hard. That stuff is really hard. But you're doing the work. So you're getting, I shared that quote earlier about the insanity doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. You're not doing that. You're stopping that cycle, and you're seeing some different results. Now, I know that the next natural thing is to look for how can we really get them to try new foods. So that's a lot of what I dive into in class, because those are some really specific therapeutic interventions that I really want to give a lot of support to. I give a lot of how-to videos. Like, I literally demonstrate this with my own children so that you can see exactly how to do those yourself. And of course, you have a full lesson and then handouts to execute this at home. And it really is much easier when I'm able to teach it to you and demonstrate it in that way. And of course, on day 5, you guys learned the beginning seed of that, which is really eating together and starting to just interact in a very positive, non-threatening way and playing with the food. That's one of the core strategies that I teach in starting to expand variety. That's kind of like the like I said, like the little seed of it. There's a lot more that I expand on in class, but that is a great starting point. Okay, Jennifer also has a question. She says, my almost 9-year-old is struggling with these strategies. He's really defiant and sitting for 20 minutes, has yet to try anything new, and is eating less of his preferred foods. It's working for my 2-year-old, but she's not very picky to begin with. Jennifer, I'm so glad that you asked this, because this is exactly why I have the discussion board for Mealtime Works, and it's so that we can kind of troubleshoot and work through some of these issues. And I will tell you, for some kids, and I obviously have no idea right now, just from that little comment, exactly what's going on with your son. I'm sure that there's, we would kind of tease all of that out. But let me say this. One of the things that I know, especially, I shouldn't say especially with older children, because it actually is with all children. Some children have a really hard time sitting still for a sensory reason. For their body, it's really difficult sitting still. It's really difficult standing still. That's actually in our last module, on Module 5, I have an entire lesson dedicated to how to use sensory strategies and kind of thinking outside the box on how to help kids that have a really hard time sitting still to be able to enjoy a meal at the table. So we talk about a lot of different strategies. And how to start thinking about that in a different way, but while still following a lot of the core principles to making sure that you're getting them on a path to a really lifelong healthy relationship with food. So Jennifer, I would encourage you to start thinking about different ways that you can get him to even stand at the table or possibly do some activities at the table. Again, I'm kind of going with the idea that this is probably sensory related, you know, just with a little bit of information that I have there. Okay, Doris just asked a question, and she says, how can I get my son to try a new food if as soon as he sees something new, he refuses to eat or even get close to his plate? So this is, again, something we talk about a lot in class, because while we see the full spectrum of picky eaters inside of Mealtime Works, this is a common hurdle to get over for the most extreme picky eaters, right? Seriously, if you guys look at the discussion board, you'll see people saying, my child can't even come to the table. My child can't even be in the room. They will even throw up at the sight. So how the heck are we even going to get them to eating new foods? So one of the ways is addressing the underlying problem. When we can improve their sensory processing, okay, like actually that's like actually neurological in their brain, through certain sensory activities, we can actually improve the way the brain is taking in that information. That's one way that's kind of indirectly going to affect their eating in a really big, powerful way. But the other way, and what we talked a little bit in the challenge, is starting to break down into really, really, really little baby steps, so that we're respecting where they are and understanding that it might be really difficult for them, that we're not pressuring them, but that we're making a steady gain forward. Inside of class, I really walk through in Module 4 these really specific ways to start increasing variety, but I don't do that until we work through addressing the underlying issue. So once we're at that place where we're really starting to work on variety, hopefully the underlying issue is starting to be sorted out, and then we're starting to really expand the variety when those underlying issues are addressed. And I'll say this to just be a little bit more specific for you, Doris. It's that you're really looking to see where they are. So if your son, I'm just looking at your comment again, if as soon as he sees it, he's refusing to eat it or even get it close to his plate. So the idea is, so if he's not even allowing it close to his plate, what else can you do? Like, how close can you get it to his plate, and starting to take slow baby steps until it's on his plate? Those are the kinds of things that you want to start thinking about. And Doris, you just said he has autism SPD. So major sensory factors going on there, obviously. For those of you who don't know, SPD is sensory processing disorder, and that means that there are, I'm trying to think how to sum this up in a sentence, but basically that the way that their brain is interpreting different sensations from their body is more extreme than most children. So things may be not perceived as intensely or way too intensely. And it can be a whole mix across all of the senses, and a couple of senses that you probably have never heard about. And it's often a big component of children with autism and ADHD as well. But I will say, and I try to say this all the time, I think I said this in a video last week too, you do not have to have any of these diagnoses, have sensory issues. My son, that was an extreme picky eater, as soon as he started eating, and it got worse after an illness, some of you saw that post in the Facebook group, when I shared my personal story. He is 6 now, but when we were working through that, and what has continued, what I have always seen, is that the major issue from day one was sensory, and he has no diagnosis, and it does not need a diagnosis, but he does have sensory differences that drive some of the decisions that he makes, and has at one point was heavily driving the limited food that he was taking. So I spent a lot of time early on really addressing those sensory needs. So that would be one thing I would really want to focus on, Doris. All right, guys, I don't want to get too long on you here tonight. I know it's late. Thank you so much for those of you that joined me live. I will be posting this in the group tonight. Remember that the recap page is going down tonight at midnight. So if you haven't been over there, if you want to look at everything in its entirety one more time, if you want to grab that bonus, make sure you check your email and get that. And the special 1-year anniversary for Mealtime Works, my baby, the class that I love dearly, the students that I'm so proud of. If you want to join us in that class, if you're looking for more, if you want to get to the underlying problem, if you really want to work at expanding that variety, and as well as really getting a handle on those core strategies in a much deeper way, you can join us at yourkidstable.com/MW challenge. That's MW challenge. And the link is above this video or below it, depending on where you're seeing it. And the $50 off expires tomorrow when the 1-year anniversary sale ends. If you have any questions, you know how to find me. You can leave them here in the Facebook group. You can email me. I will be around. I thank you guys all so much. Have a very wonderful evening. Bye-bye.